Hello, and welcome to this podcast episode where we interview Frank Bartanowitz and talk to him about the Waycross-Ware County Airport. And you also learn a little bit more about me. Enjoy!
So this is, and then you're recording now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all this is local, or on Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
I did verify that this is correct, but just like a brief history of how we got our start. And then throughout the years, we had almost 4 airlines here at one time between like the 40s and all the way up to 1983. But the big part of this airport is that it was done in 1930 is when the War Department and everybody came together in the Army and they're like, we need to start building facilities for training. Aviation was still very much in its infancy, but we had made leaps and bounds. So when they established this was originally like almost 1,800 acres is what the city and county gave them for $1 a land lease. $1 for all that land. And to build what they built. And they did the runways, all the support equipment that came with it, so hangars, maintenance facilities, barracks for the troops and the support personnel, a hospital, what they call a DFAC or a dining facility. Then they built a commissary for those that had families to go shopping and buy groceries and things of that nature. They built up a facility in order to have sports, and then a dance hall. The troops wanted a place to go dance. So that was over on the backside where like the fire department and all that would have been. That was the support buildings.
All the way over there?
Yes, ma'am. This airfield ran all the way to the ball fields where the dog shelter is. Yes, ma'am. When you come in the road, if you come off Cherokee, you make the right-hand turn.
Yeah.
And you know how that road looks really weirdly wide? It's like a wide that then bottlenecks back into 2 lanes. That was the original front gate of this base. And why it's so wide is there was a concrete structure smack dab in the middle that was your entry control point, or ECP. And they would have had like the guard building there with the gates to go up and down. They would manually operate it back then. And then traffic would wait to come in and they would be let on the base or let out. So this whole thing was fenced off or swamped off. They had swamp, they didn't fence it. But it went all the way back to where our current industrial park was a lot of that was part of the original airport or Army airfield. Where the fire department sits, no kidding, is the original gunnery berm. So they have this massive area of piles of sand that they built up probably 10, 12 feet tall. And then they would take the aircraft down this taxiway. So where I think Marvin or Justin took you out that day driving around. So they went past those last hangars. There's another taxiway goes to the left. If you take that straight down, that's where Harris Road pierces. Harris Road goes over one of the taxiways. And they would tie down the aircraft there. And that's where they would fire the 50 caliber machine guns, wing mounted, across into those sand berms. That's how they would calibrate the guns and line of sight them, so that when they got in the air and they trained. So that was where the airport or the fire department sits. And if you talk to the folks that have been there forever, like the older firemen, like they're in their 50s,
Yeah, I'm a volunteer firefighter, so I'm there every Monday and Thursday.
Ask them about that, because in order to clean all that lead out, it took them like years to get all that lead mitigation, because there was like just literally tons of expended munitions in there. We had bombs here, so we had EOD come in when they gave this back to us in the 40s or 50s. EOD teams, Coastal Ordnance, had to come in and do sweep the whole area basically to say, hey, it's clean and all that good stuff. But the big thing was when they took this over was to build this up. Way out behind the tree line there, we were doing a project for this fence to clear out, and we unearthed a huge concrete structure that nobody knew was back there for many, many years. Started digging it out, and we did some research, and come to find out that it's an old anti-aircraft gun emplacement. So it's where the gun would have sat on this concrete structure. So when the war started, World War II, they would have had to protect this airfield, so they would have had anti-aircraft gun batteries, and that's where one sat. So it had been covered up with earth and trees for 60 years, 70 years. Yeah.
I wonder how much is under.
Probably, if I had to guess, there's probably things that would just blow our minds.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Because, a lot of, we jokingly say they're not growing land anymore.
Yeah.
Well, land does grow. It grows up though,
Yeah.
right? So every time you cut your grass and it falls, it creates another layer of mulches in and soil to grow. Like, it does grow. So everything raises up. No different than you're looking like, man, is my house sinking? No, your ground is literally raising up. So same thing out there. Most of this airfield was all what they call soil cement. So they would pour sections of cement, and it was very wet out here. It's very swampy. So they would try to dry it out best they could. They would just pour the cement in while it was still wet on the ground, and then would cure. They keep pouring until it got what they needed as far as like thickness or density, or get it to dry out and harden. But almost this entire airfield, even where the grass is growing, is up to, in some places, 32 inches thick of concrete, soil cement. It was hand or machine poured back in the day, but this is in the 30s and 40s. So all that area, this grass that we mow under there, is about that deep under. Because if you try to dig down, post hole, you'll get about a good, if you're lucky, you'll get 10 inches. And then bam, you're right in the solid, that soil cement. So when they did our fence project, they were out there having to hand auger that out, digging those holes wider for the poles. So that goes the entire length, goes across over that way as well. So just a lot of stuff people don't realize. You're walking on old areas that were made for this airport.
So much history.
Yes, ma'am. The entire thing was, so all 3 runways were utilized. The main runway was a little bit shorter, and then everything was interconnected and exteriorly connected by a system of taxiways, so roads for the airplanes. So you could transit this entire airport with the aircraft by taxiing it under its own power or being towed, or drive around. And now we have to go certain ways to get there. It was too much money to maintain. So when this was turned over to us, and then we fall under FAA guidance, because we receive a majority of our funding for big projects through FAA and GDOT Aviation. That's our tax dollars, hard work. But we have to follow certain requirements for them. So like, they'll come and say, hey, if your runway is 150 feet wide, if you take that down to 125 feet, remove 25 foot off the width, the total length, you'll save yourself like millions of dollars over a 25-year period in like upkeep or this, that, and the other. So things of that nature, right? I'm just using those numbers, but what they're saying is that, hey, if we're going to try to conserve our resources, we don't need maybe that exact width of runway, because we're not landing big jets here yet. It'd be nice to come, but we'll see. So there's just different things that the FAA tells us to do. I think what else history-wise? We know about the airlines. So you had Southeastern was big. Eastern Airlines originally started. It was the big 4 actually, but Eastern and TWA, they say, landed here occasionally as well. But there just wasn't a lot of reception to that. And I looked up the prices. It was still $22 in 1940 something to fly from here to Atlanta.
Yeah, which is pretty pricey.
Very pricey. I mean, but that was luxury flying back in the day. I mean, you're getting full service even on an hour flight. Stewardesses looking nice and dressed up, pilots coming out all suave, with the hair done and the hat on, and that was the golden age of flight, So that was what we had here. The little office I sit in was the actual ticket counter. So this building really hasn't changed much. So we got approval to build this building in 1959, and then they started on it in 1960. By 61, it was complete. But this was in the, I believe this was, so 74. That's exactly how the front of our building looks now. Only difference is we covered up the windows on the inside so that sunlight couldn't come through. But in the back here, there's a ton of pictures, and really the building hasn't changed much over the years. I mean, that's exactly, other than upkeep, that's what we have today. So the front parking changed just a little bit. This is the back side, so this is right here where we're looking. We just had done some work to it. That's the inside of the building. So those windows at the top, but now we have like that aluminum looking metal facade on there. That was just a decorator's choice to do. But there was a lot of stuff out here not too very long ago, all the way up until about the mid-90s. You had 2 flight schools, you had a parachute school and team out here. Right across the street there in that grass where you parked, right across in that grass area was it was almost like a technical school. So you would go there to learn a trade, and they did like tanning, like for skinning of animals and tanning the hides and repurposing it so you're not wasting the animal. Then I think at some point it became like a wood shop for some things. Like I said, we had the trainers, we had 2 competing, what this is considered is called a fixed based operator. So there was 2 competing FBOs. So they both sold their own fuel. So you land in a plane, and before internet, you just pull in, and there'd be like somebody out there on the weekends. They said he'd hire the local teenage high school girls to come out and stand out there in the summertime in like a bikini or something to hold the sign up to 3 cents cheaper than next door to get them to come over and buy the fuel. And so the two guys would compete over that. But I had a lady come in here not too long ago. She was like, my mom used to be a skydiver. My dad was a pilot. We would come in here every weekend and we would have barbecues. She said this place was jumping. There'd be kids running around, riding bikes. They just watched a plane take off. They'd skydive, do 2 or 3 jumps a day, weather permitting. She said this went on like every day in the 70s and 80s. She said it was unreal. But see, a lot changed in the 90s. And a lot of that was fuel prices went through the roof. Maintaining an aircraft went through the roof. Insurance rates went up. We started having more accidents. And as those things occur, I'm not knocking government. I did 25 years in the military. I understand how big government works. A lot of things that they do, a lot of policy is a knee-jerk reaction. You get a handful of people that are screaming about something, and the easiest way to quiet them down is to just pull the trigger on something like knee-jerk and make it happen. So then that causes problems. Instead of getting down to the root, hey, was it truly pilot error? Was it a maintenance error? Was it this error? Well, no, we're gonna squash it for everybody and then make it more difficult and more rigorous to either get a license or to do certain things. So I know they did have a couple injuries parachuting, but that's inherent in anything you're doing. It's a dangerous sport. So that's, as those things occur, then people start losing interest or they get concerned. It's no different than any other thing.
They said that as in some of the people that work here, said that you've only been here for like a short amount of time.
A year and a half.
And what made you want to come here?
I was not looking for a job. One of my 4 daughters wants to be a pilot. That's her dream job. And I've always wanted to learn to fly as well. So I figured, well, hey, why don't we learn it together? I have my GI Bill still I haven't used, and I have VA money I get to use. So instead of wasting it, let's use it for something. And so we came to the airport. At that time, we've been living here almost 6 years, and I had no idea we had this out here. I mean, I've driven by it 20 times going to the dump. So came in that day, there was one guy working, there was nothing out here, and I said, hey, do you guys offer flying lessons? And he says, no, there's no schools, no nothing. And it was a very short conversation. That was it. Didn't think nothing of it, walked out the door. About 2 months later, a good friend of mine who's retired Navy also, he flies for a big airline. A friend of his owns a little Cessna plane. He was looking for cross-country flights, which are greater than 50 miles, to fly from Florida just go somewhere different, see something different. He says, hey, I'm gonna have Mitch call you, and he wants to fly from Lake City, Florida to here to do a cross-country, and he'd like to meet you and give you and your daughter an orientation flight.
That's cool.
I said, cool. So he lands here at the airport, we meet, we talk, do a little pre-brief. So my wife was with me, and her and our daughter went up flying first. I stayed behind with my other 2 girls. And we're just hanging around the FBO, and I'm showing them the models and showing them stuff, a couple planes that touch and go. It's a beautiful day. And just explain them aviation. That's what I did in the Navy for 25 years. And the guy that was here a couple months earlier was here again, and I didn't realize he was sitting in the back. He's listening to me talking to my 2 daughters, explaining everything. And he comes out, he goes, you know aviation? I was like, yes, I do. So we started talking. He's prior military also. And he's like, man, we could really use help. It's just me and one other guy running this whole place. It's a beast. And I was like, I'm really not looking for a job. I'm enjoying retirement, I'm enjoying family time. He says, well, if you reconsider, we really could use the help. And he says, I think you'd be a good fit here. I'm like, all right, cool. So he gave me the county website to fill it out. Went to church that night, and I was talking to my pastor, and I talked to my wife about it that day, and she's like, hey, whatever you want to do, we'll support it. So went home that night, I went on the website, filled out the application, submitted my resume, and totally forgot about it. Woke up next morning, cup of coffee, and I have this little shop in town where I do some personal woodworking. I'm in there sanding away, my phone rings, and I recognize a number, so I answered it, and it was the fire chief, Chief D. Meadows. He was basically the one of 2 managers here, him and Jesse Jordan was the other manager. He's like, hey, saw your application, love to interview you. What are you doing right now? I said, I'm covered in sawdust and sanding some wood down. He says, don't worry about it, pretty informal, just want to meet you. I'd like to talk to you if this is what you want to do. I said, sure. So we met back out here in this very room. I was sitting where you are, they were over here. And I was filthy, covered in dust. And So they were looking at my resume and asked me some questions, and they're like, "What do you think you're worth?" I said, "Well, so I'm not trying to be cavalier about this, but I don't think you can afford what my 25 years is." He says, "No, I know we can. We've read your resume. It's very nice." And he says, "Here's what we can do, and if you're willing to start, we'll get the process going once we get approval to hire you." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "That's fair. I mean, like, what kind of work?" And it was easy work. It was shift work, which was nice, like 3 days on, 4 days off kind of deal, like done. So the very next day, I get a call back. "Hey, love to have you. You're hired." So
Oh my gosh.
So I went down to HR, did all the paperwork. 2 weeks later, on Valentine's Day of last year, I started working, February 14th. I still took my wife out to dinner, so I wanted to publicly know that I didn't miss that for work. And then a couple months go by, and it's just, it is like right now it's very laid back. It's just time of year. Our area is very unique, so we're like the lunch rush airport. So between about 10:30 and 2, if this place is going to be busy, we're bonkers at that time. And then it'll be nothing. It'll be onesie twosies, or like a air evac comes in to get fuel for the helo. It was pretty simple, and I'm sitting out here thinking like, man, I still want to learn to fly. So then I met a couple pilots that live here that are also instructors at planes and blah, blah, blah. So we kind of parlayed that into my daughter getting some training. I pay for fuel or for myself, and we're still working on it. So fast forward February, I guess it would be July timeframe. The other guy that was here was like really the supervisor. He was running this place, and he was offered a dream job up near Atlanta. He is a soccer fanatic, a phenomenal soccer coach and a player, and he got a college coaching gig as the head coach of a team up in northern Georgia, and he obviously jumped on that. That was what he had been waiting for. So it was just me and the other guy. We're looking at each other like, all right, I guess we're gonna be holding it down again, just 2 people. And then who do you want to do the work schedule and all that? And he's like, I don't want anything to do with it. You take that. Okay. So I was just talking with Chief D and Jesse, and I said, hey, if you guys are looking for somebody to manage this, I can do it. I mean, I did this basically in the military. And so they presented it to the county manager, Scott. And then a couple weeks later we met, we talked, and he says, all right, so it's kind of like an interim kind of deal, like probation. And just started doing some little things around here. Not changes in the sense that we were doing things wrong, just things that we just weren't doing because we didn't have the manpower. I hired some new people, got some folks in. Ironically, nobody that applied for these jobs ever had aviation experience. It was kind of like, this sounds like it'd be a great job, which it is. And Becky is a prime example, so is Justin. Justin's learning to fly. Marvin never had done aviation. He was in the military, but he was on the ground side. But the key is just being receptive and open to learning something new.
Yeah.
Listening to the fact that, hey, this is dangerous, this is how we're going to do it so we don't get hurt or cause injury or death or damage. And then you learn it. You do it more, it's repetition, right? Muscle memory. And it's pretty easy. There are days when literally, like you and I are having this conversation, we have the time to do it. It's a beautiful part of this job. And then there's days when, hey, if she's out doing something right now, just her and I now until about 11. If the phone rings or something happens, I'm going to excuse myself and go do it. It's just what we do.
I saw her drive the fuel truck.
Yeah, that's her. Doing the thing.
She's so cool.
And then there's, like I said, there's days where you're literally looking at each other like, all right, we've already mowed the grass this week. What else can we do? But we do all the upkeep here. It's pretty impressive what we are able to do with a small crew. And we are still just shy of 900 acres, so that's a lot of land to maintain. A lot of fence line, a lot of grass, a lot of lights, a lot of everything. So that's kind of how I wound up here, and it has been a very wonderful experience. It's got its moments where it's, full transparency. I look back like, man, I was really enjoying being retired right now. But then I would say 98% of the time, I'm excited to be here, meet interesting people. I walked into that bicentennial thing accidentally. That was Miss Marla came in here for a flying we had last year. We started talking, and she kind of like voluntold me that, hey, you're going to be on the thing. And then, you meet different people that you ordinarily would probably meet. It's just the way the world is, So.
That's so cool. Yeah. Isn't it weird how everything just lines up?
It does. I'm a Christian, I believe in God, and I definitely believe He puts us where He needs us.
Absolutely.
As much as I did not want to move here to retire, I know that He planted me here for a reason. And it was literally as simple as my wife said, hey, we need to be here for her family. She had followed me around for 15 years in my naval career. The least I could do was say, okay. I mean, there was no complaining, no griping. Like, I didn't even ask why. I just said, okay, that's where we're going. Now in my mind, I'm thinking, well, we don't have a house, we don't have this. I got like 99 things. Like, okay, well, we'll make it happen.
That's so beautiful. That's awesome. I mean, that's kind of like me. I didn't expect to ever be in Georgia. I've never even came to Georgia before moving here.
Originally?
Philadelphia. Like the center, the hood, the trenches.
That's where most of my family's from.
That's so cool.
I used to ride the L.
Yeah.
Every summer I'd go visit my grandma in the 80s. She lived just about, probably about like as the crow flies, a mile and a half north of city center, but would take you forever driving. So you jump on the L station was 2 blocks down from our house, and we'd ride into town. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I miss
Love
that.
the food, yeah. A good cheesesteak and a pretzel in the morning on the side of the road. And, get yelled at by somebody selling papers because you didn't buy paper. And, things like that. Yeah, Philadelphia's a cool place. It's rough, but it's a cool place.
Oh, it's so rough. That's why we moved here.
All right.
Because it was getting too expensive, and it was after the pandemic, and most of our family already moved to Tennessee, but we didn't want to be in Tennessee. We wanted the beach. So we moved as close as we could.
So your whole family came down here?
No, just me, my mom, and my brother.
Okay.
And now my grandma stays with us.
But how here? Like what brought you to... Like you just went on the map?
Zillow. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Zillow.
That's trippy.
So it was going to be either here or Moultrie.
Okay.
But then...
Moultrie's tiny.
Yeah.
Compared to here.
Yeah. But we never even visited. We saw the house here. It's an old historic house from 1890.
Yeah.
And we always wanted an old house to fix. And so we saw it, and the next week we bought it.
Really?
And my mom just retired at the time. And so, a long story, but anyway, we ended up buying the house, and then that was it.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's some neat old houses here. I mean, if I had the time, I have 0 time. I mean, like I need like another 8 hours a day. The way
That's what I'm thinking. Me too.
But I would love like that. I drive by that pink house that's for sale in the corner there.
Yeah.
One of my daughters loves pink, and everything she says, Daddy, we get that house. I'm like, babe, we got like one, it costs money, but 2, like we have 0 time to be putting any energy between life and life. You know, but there are some gorgeous homes here that with just a little bit of love would just be absolutely amazing to see those just refurbished or. I mean, I always, every time I see those old houses, I think Airbnb or a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
You know, just to get that extra attraction. I mean, I would run one. I love B&Bs. I think they're cool.
Yeah.
You know, especially something so old like that with the history. And what's trippy to me too, I know we're getting off topic, but those old houses are literally the center of the universe of Waycross of the 125, 130 years ago. Right on the railroad tracks, because the railroads were still there. That's what brought this town, right? And now we strive so hard to get away from that.
Yeah.
You know, I live way out in the woods. Most people that if you were of the ability, like the generation that you're 3rd or 4th generation and a house is given to you, maybe you would, but the vast majority of people your age would not live down here at all, period.
Oh, yeah.
Get out of that.
Yeah, they just sell it.
They'd be happier living like in a condo above the bunk building or something like that, which I think would be cool too. But yeah, I couldn't imagine. And just I'd look at those, and then I also like it's sad because you're looking at some of them that have been so neglected. It's like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Because somebody owns that, right? Like, you know, that's, how do you not know you have that house? And like, because you're not living in it, obviously. There's no way you could be. But how do you just let that happen? And I get it. Things happen. Families have major rifts. And, you know, heck, for all I know, the person could be in California. It could have been the same thing. Like, I'm out of here. I'm going west. Don't care about the house.
Yeah, a lot of people my age are like that they just leave because they're either going to school or they don't want to be here and there's not enough to do. So
I will tell you this, traveling around as much as I've done, I've been to 37 countries, and I've lived all over this great country. I've lived in all 4 corners of it, and in the middle. It's really where you want to be. Like when people say home is truly where you make it.
Yeah.
But I could not do the city life anymore, and that was one of the biggest draws for us here was, like you were talking about, I mean, it's just, it's almost like it's unnatural the way we live now in the cities. We have literally gotten away from what it should have been, like these small towns, communities taking care of each other, regardless of your differences, regardless of your beliefs. Just that, I mean, 20,000 seems, it's a big number, but it's not when you compare that to, that could be a 2-block radius of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You know, not a largest county in the state of Georgia population, you know. And I think really, I almost see us going back full circle.
Yeah, I think so.
Like we're going to start coming back into smaller, tighter, and then let the cities do the city.
Yeah, I see it.
Me personally, that's the way I see it. So.
A lot of stuff has to change in Waycross though, like, because you're mentioning Douglas, but also I think about it in terms of Brunswick, and I've talked to them a lot, and their downtown was like dilapidated up until like a couple years ago.
That's right.
And now it's just thriving. And it's just.
But I have noticed the city is making some serious power moves in this, in a way of like derelict buildings and houses. They've been either giving them a chance, if not, they seize it, they demolish it, they've done. That's important. It's sad, but it's an important thing, getting that extra business in. I've been noticing some utilities work as far as like a drainage, and that's because a lot of these areas, I mean, like a quick rainstorm, you're flooding like right into homes. I mean, so that's an important part of your infrastructure. They're getting on it, but the thing is, and I'm a big part of this problem where I want change like now. Like snap make it happen. But you're trying to change 15 years or 50 years worth of neglect or whatever you want to label it. It doesn't happen overnight. How you eat elephant, a little bit at a time, right? You just.
What are some things you love about the airport?
It's an airport. It's aviation. It's I guess, I mean, as a kid, and I'm still a kid at heart, just the mere fact of man's ability to fly, right? You know, Wright brothers did what they did, and then here we are. And now this is really a industry that is called more women. Women pilots are really, they're starting to almost catch up to the men in terms of numbers and what they want to do. And I think that's a wonderful thing, especially as a father of 4 daughters. I mean, I support every dream they have. I don't care what you want to do, that's what you want to do, I'll support it. Another one wanted to do aviation, which is what I did in the military. I didn't fly the planes, but I maintained the equipment that supported them. But part of that airport experience is like someone like you coming in and maybe doesn't ever have much aviation knowledge, and you ask, and then to see your face when I tell you, hey, we found this out there buried, and you get like all excited. That's to me, that's the best part of it is people that come in. One, it's I didn't even know we had this. I've been here 20 years. 2, didn't know we had this much air traffic until the last couple months. Or the third one is, it's always my favorite, is, hey, how do I catch a flight to Atlanta? I said, well, unfortunately, I'd rather Jacksonville or Brunswick, but maybe someday it'll come back again. You know, we'll see.
I hope so.
It'd be pretty neat. It's just a matter of, it's the cost thing, but I just love the environment. I love aviation as a whole. I think it's a very important part of what we have in our world to be able to travel. It's also part of the things that drive me nuts. Like when I was just talking about the big cities, it allowed us now to be a lot closer. Where before, if you lived in California, you'd have to drive there. It would take you probably a week and a half, 2 weeks if you're lucky, you know, in the 40s and 50s, if you could even afford to do that.
Yeah.
And if you did it, you're probably going there to stay. It wasn't going to visit. So now, you know, like I said earlier, air travel in the golden age of aviation was a luxury. I mean, not everybody flew. Aviation is now open to just about everybody. Even if you don't have a lot of money, if you got a credit card, you can go fly on a plane. That's reality. But just a neat way to travel, and then the pilots when they come in sharing their knowledge and experiences. I think really the best part of the day is when you get somebody that comes in here and they're like, man, I took my first solo flight in here like 30 years ago out of Jacksonville, and they're like, man, you guys always have popcorn. You know, that's the other draw is crazy people flying here just get a free bag of popcorn and a glass of water. Say, hey, I'm serious, walk around, stretch your legs, get some salt. I don't know what it is about flying. You get like it's almost like you're losing like the sodium and electrolytes. They'll come in and get some salty popcorn, drink a glass of water, and then get back to the plane with them.
That's so cool.
I mean, I'm like, cool. That's what we're here for. We're public space and open to the public. I mean, if you wanted to roll in and just soak up some free Wi-Fi at a library, I'll
What are your hours?
7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Wow.
7 days a week.
That's crazy.
It is.
I didn't know it was open so late.
The few that do that. And our big reason for doing it is we want to support, like I said, we're in that weird zone of our big times are that 10 to 2 kind of deal, the lunch rush, if you will. But a lot of folks that are transiting from north, heading down to Jax or Daytona or even South Florida, they'll sometimes routinely make a stop here, even if it's not for fuel, just to stretch or use the bathroom. So it's nice to have that for them even later. And we'll come in after hours. I get a phone call occasionally, once or twice a month. 9 o'clock at night, hey, landed, was running low on fuel, weather got bad, where I was going, had to divert, jump in my car, give me 20 minutes, I'll be here. And,
That's so cool. Isn't that so cool?
It is.
That you can just, yeah, I'm on the way.
It is. But
I would
this
never get that in Philly.
No.
That's so cool.
We're trying to keep that hometown feel, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Welcome. We'd love to have you back. And keep that small town feel, but that we're still able to provide. I can provide almost every service here that I could if I operated an airport outside Atlanta.
Wow.
Other than you're probably not going to get some crazy attitude here like you would outside Atlanta.
Yeah.
And that's reality. So if you travel enough, we're different here. The other thing too, an airport is very much like when you go travel. Like say you wanted to go back to Philly to visit. You're not going to call a Circle K along the way to say, hey, we're coming to get gas.
Yeah.
Right, you're just going to whip it in. Or if you see a Buc-ee's, have you been to Buc-ee's yet? Okay. Everybody wants to stop at Buc-ee's. You don't call Buc-ee's ahead of time and say, hey, we're coming to have a sandwich ready and fuel. You just pull in, get gas, and leave. An airport's really no different. When you're on these small, what they call general aviation, is what we are. We're supposed to be open and readily available to service that. Some airports don't have the 7-to-7 like we do, but they'll have what's called self-service. So you can pull your plane up to a pump and you can pump it yourself. You pay there, service it yourself. But most pilots don't like doing that. Especially if you had a high-end plane, you're probably not going to be doing that. And for what we charge for full-service fuel is not that much greater than what you would pay for self-service. So it's really a win to come here, get us a service for you, come in, relax, get some AC, something to eat and drink, and get back on your way.
That's so cool. That's awesome. What are you trying to improve about the airport? Parachuting, private jets.
I would like to get it more open to not so much the commercial side. It's a huge undertaking, and it's a game changer for the community, but it may not be something that the entire community wants. Half of our airport has housing behind it to the side of the school over there. The rest of it's industrial park. So really a large jet landing 3 or 4 times a day may not be what you want. The smaller private jets to have a charter service or a company that wants to keep their plane here because the cost to base it here is significantly less, say, than up in Atlanta or Savannah. That would be fantastic because it still generates revenue for the community. It still brings awareness to the airport. I would definitely love a flight school, and that is something I've been working hard at. The biggest problem with getting a flight school back here again is the amount of money it takes to start it up. You're talking millions of dollars just with equipment, the curriculum to do it, the pilots to do it, which have to be instructors, the insurance and liability, and you have to have a hangar that you're going to store your aircraft in, because if you spend $300,000 on a plane, you don't want it sitting on this Georgia sun and weather, rotting away. That's exactly what's going to happen no matter how much you use it. So those are things, it's always a money thing. Everything does come back to money when you're talking business. But a flight school would be fantastic. Me personally, I'm not a fan of the parachuting, another reason that I'm not jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. But I have had people come in who would love to get that back, and I would gladly entertain somebody. It would be something that would have to be addressed with the commission, but I think that's something that
would be so cool.
Could bring back in. Absolutely.
Even like once or twice a month.
It'd be neat.
I would do it.
You would?
The next question was, what do you wish people knew about the airport? But I feel like it's everything you said. Oh wait, the phone's ringing.
She's done.
Okay.
It really is. It's everything aviation, but what really, a lot of what was done here, it was aviation centric, but throughout the years, there was other businesses that started here. Dee Dee's Donuts, that used to be in the Friendlies. They got their start where Jason and Chase worked, that building. So that's the old weather building. So before we had everything is now automated through computers and stuff. They would have a weather station. So folks manned the weather station, weathermen. They would go out there and launch the balloons in the morning and the evening and do the humidity and dew point and barometric pressure and all that. So that building is what the weather station was. Well, then when everything went automated, which is called AWOS, Automated Weather Observation System, that was old technology. So those folks went and did whatever else, or they retired. So that building remained empty for a while, and Dee Dee's Donuts was like looking for a place for an upstart. So they made donuts in that building. And when you would come in the morning, it was amazing smell. And then this was like in the 90s. And folks would come in and give them all like the reject donuts. They would just give them to them, like the fire department come over or the workers.
Oh my
They're
god.
just passing out free donuts. So we had stuff like that start, and it's just neat. Now, funny part of that is now with the new rules of how we manage airports, we can have a restaurant, but it's got to be in the aviation realm, right? It's got to be something that services aviation. So like I just couldn't have a car dealership come out here and want to put a car dealership on the land. It's got to have something to do. Now, I could do a car rental because if a plane lands, they want to rent a car, then that would be a business that's supporting that aviation enterprise. Or like all of a sudden you realize you can design something cool for an airplane that every pilot could use. That would be an aviation item. If you wanted to put your business out here to manufacture or sell it, again, that's aviation. You know, it's in support of.
So like the development authority, it would make sense.
Yes. So.
And
they're right here. It made sense too because we're right by the industrial park. So that's what the majority of what they're trying to do out there is to develop this area. So why not right here? And you got front door access to these big private jets to come in. So if you're trying to entertain people, which him and I have worked together, Jason and I, on a couple of things, and they drove in, but I mean, had they flown in, we'd have been out here waiting for them. It was literally 300 yards from his building, and come on over and we do our thing.
That's so cool. My last question is, how can Tracking the Cross help the airport?
Awareness.
Okay.
Get the word out that we're here, we're open for business. We'd love to have folks come out. I would love for the schools to start bringing tours back out here again. We have had none this year, which is very unusual this past school year. I mean, I know me personally, I remember school like it was yesterday. Any opportunity to not be in class was amazing.
Yeah.
So have the teachers come out with some chaperones and bring the kids, we'll allow them to get them a tour of what we got going on. If I have planes available for them to look at, we bring those out. I do have some pilots that are willing to bring the plane out, what they call static display, to take a look at it. Our forestry division is a huge asset we have here as well. And Mr. Greg, who runs forestry aviation here, is always willing to give them a tour of their aircraft and their hangar, show them a video of what they do. If the weather permits, they'll even do a water drop for them to show them how the plane operates and fight a fire. And it's just a neat experience, you know, come on out.
So cool.
I'll even make them free popcorn all day long. So, you know, get the kids all jacked up on some salty popcorn. But I would like to have that happen more frequently. We had some homeschooling groups earlier in the year last year, but we had no schools come back out here. So definitely, if any teachers listen to this, it'd be a good thing to do. Anybody that wants to do an event.
What if we did an event?
I'd love to have an event.
Does it cost a lot of money?
$0.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
To start it out, I would definitely want to do that because I want, like I said, it's awareness. And if it's somebody wants to come out and vend something, then vend. I mean, and if the county tells me otherwise, then we'll go from there the next time. I'm a huge fan of forgiveness over permission, so don't put that in the podcast.
No, I'll put that out.
But no, I mean, if we, like the Black Pilots Association thing, that costs them nothing to do that.
And that's such a cool event.
Yes, we donate our time because it's supporting a very needed industry.
Yeah.
It's awareness in that industry, whether it be minorities or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if I didn't come to that event, I wouldn't have known about the airport.
this year was the first time that we had more advertising of it. Miss Melinda, who is basically she's the clerk for the county commission, solid Melinda Brooks. She's very OCD to make sure things happen the way they're supposed to. She follows through type person. She got it out on our website, made sure the other entities had it. Had I known about your thing then, I would definitely would have had you do it. But that's all about sharing that knowledge, because now you get more people watching your videos and liking you and all, right? That helps you out build your thing. Hey, you hit that 1 million mark someday, right? You're getting paid, right? Isn't that how YouTube works? Or is that a myth?
No, YouTube does pay, but you have to hit like a certain number of subscribers. So you need at least 1,000 subscribers.
We'll get you there. We got that alone.
We're over 10% there.
Okay.
I'm all about stats.
Okay, well, it takes time, right?
Yeah.
But then you're gonna wake up one morning and be like, oh my God, we're there.
Yeah.
Now what?
Because like a couple days ago, we hit 1,000 streams on something, and I was like, already?
When you walked out of here that second time, Justin's like, I watched your video when she came in because you were with him that day.
Yeah.
And then he's like, actually pretty good. I was like, you narrated very well. So I logged on. I liked it.
What?
Yeah. It's under my wife's account. I don't have Facebook. I use hers. And then I was watching it, and I was like, that's pretty legit. We did one about the murders.
Yeah, the Pea Patch Murders.
Yep.
That's our most popular episode.
Yep. And then you were doing one on, it was either first, I was watching through the season, so season 1, episode 1. And then you had like episode 3.1 or something. I guess you added onto it, or
yeah.
Continuation. So then but I'm also studying for my license, so I was taking some
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
and Waycross is so interesting. Like, people just don't know. And that's why me and Connor started doing the podcast. Because we were like, well, Connor grew up here.
Yep.
And he was always fascinated about the history here. And then I started reading the books. And I'm just like, how do people not know this about this small little town that it used to not be small? It used to be huge.
It was.
Like, commercial lines here is insane to think about in this little old city.
Train service would pick you up down there too, downtown, depot.
Yeah.
They never talk about that.
They never talk about it.
Amtrak stopped running through here many moons ago. Now the nearest one is Jessup.
Yeah.
You want to catch Amtrak? I just rode Amtrak last year, first time in 30 years.
Really?
Yeah, it was tricky. I don't think I'll do it again.
I did the car one where you could put your car on. I drove from Philly to around DC, and then it took me all the way to like outside of Orlando.
Sanford, Florida.
And
my grandma used to ride the auto train to see me in Norfolk, Virginia, so I know.
Yeah, and it was crazy because I was looking at the map and I was like, we're right here, we're in Waycross. They could literally just drop me off.
Yeah.
They could drop me off and I'd be home. I don't have to drive all that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Maybe one day, maybe something.
It still blows my mind that the man and the family that started Garden Family, Olive Garden, all those restaurants here.
That'll be an episode soon.
Yeah.
If you go into the depot, have you been in the depot?
I don't know.
So in the depot is the Hall of Fame
Yep.
with all the sports stuff, but they also have like an entire thing on that family.
Okay.
And you can see like what the Green Frog used to look like and all the old stuff. And someone said that in the Green Frog, like in the building where the Green Frog was, if you lift up the ceiling tiles, it has all the original wallpaper up there.
Yeah, who told me that? Marla Howell told me that.
Oh, I don't know if Marla told me. I think someone else told me, but
She told me it's there.
Yeah, that's so
It's
cool.
still there, yeah.
That's so cool. It's little stuff like that.
It is. There's other industry which you may very well be aware of. King Edward Cigars is here.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. I
don't
got
know.
a feeling it was political. And then they were gone. That big building you drive over the St. Overpass and look down the roof, that was King Edward.
Yeah.
There were two major, one for sure, but two other ones, or two total, sorry. Corrugated cardboard. Now it doesn't sound like much.
Yeah.
But everything you get today shipped is in corrugated cardboard. There was major processing of that here. And then literally, the guy did his thing and sold and walked away. He used to have a plane here too, that largest hangar. He built that. That was where he stored his planes. And then when he sold it, now the Jones Corp owns that.
Yeah.
So, but he had a massive airplane there at one time, back in the 80s.
That's crazy. So what's the oldest hangar here?
That would be the Quonset hut, the big green one down there, with the door open right now.
With the flag near it? There's an American flag near it?
Well, that's forestry, so if you go farther down, I can show you on the way out. It's massive. It's like, I think 24,000 square feet inside. So that's the oldest one. We dated that back to at least Korean War era, so it would be 50s. is when that one was constructed. And then the two smaller ones near where the flag is, I say two, it's divided in half. It's one long building. It's like a shotgun style building. That's where they used to do the Jeeps and the trucks. They would take them in there. They had still in there. It's not very safe, but it's got the rollers where the trolleys go across with the chain falls, and you can lift the bodies off the vehicles and do maintenance or pull an engine out.
What the heck?
That was already there.
Can we go see that?
Yeah, I can get you.
Really?
Yeah, there's no lights, but I'll show it to you.
That's cool.
Yeah, totally.
And I didn't know that Forestry had a plane.
They have 3 planes here.
I didn't know that.
Yep. They have what's called a Thrush, which is also known as an air tractor. It's a big belly drop plane, so it holds 450 gallons of water.
Yeah.
It's a turboprop, fast, cool looking plane. And then they have 2 Cessna 182s. That's what they use for surveillance. So they'll every day that it's not raining, they leave out of here and they fly a pattern all the way from the Okefenokee. They go all the way up the coast, almost to Savannah. They come back down. They cover like 36 counties. It's something crazy, like the number of territory they fly every day to make sure that we're protected and that if there are fires, if there's burning, that they either know, so they'll call in down to the ground. Do they have a permit, or is this a control burn? Are you all aware? Or if in fact they are looking to fight a fire, then they have aerial support. They can call in the drops. So it's a pretty important aspect of our forestry division we have here. And then right across the street, we have the ground side where they have, I think, 4, maybe 5 of those, the most enormous bulldozers you've ever seen. That's the ones they use when they cut the fire breaks and they're trying to beat the fire back. So those guys go in there and do all that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
How do I see them?
I'll get you in contact with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be another episode.
Yes, ma'am. You can do aviation side, and I'll get you hooked up with the ground side over there.
That's cool.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think what else is cool out here. As far as on the airfield, that's it.
I wish that there was still some of the buildings from back in the day from this.
I do too.
The
The hard
airfield.
part is it's the maintaining everything. Again, it goes back to money, and that's what's sad. But you got to remember too, old construction materials used were a lot different than what we use today. That asbestos was a big thing. Asbestos is wonderful. I got nothing against it. It's when you start breaking it up and breaking it in.
Yeah.
As long as you leave it alone, it does its job very effectively.
I remember being a kid and still in schools with all the tiles.
Yes.
It was fun.
And you weren't too far from Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. When that thing was active in its heyday, they were churning out ships yearly and refitting. That's where they used to send the carriers to get refitted. When I first joined the Navy, Philadelphia Naval Shipyard was still open. That was in 91. And in 94 or 95, everybody came to work one day in Philadelphia. They go down to the Naval Shipyard there, and the sailors were coming into work that day. All the gates were locked. All the civilians were locked out, so they had the police had to form a line to get the sailors in. And the shipyard had gone out of business, and they still had ships to repair to get out of there. So the sailors had to do the work. And then I guess the government did some type of weird. You could look that up. That'd probably be a cool podcast if you want to do that. Look up the history on that, because I may be butchering it. But it was just basically, they'd be like, you and I go to bed tonight, wake up tomorrow morning, think we're going to go back to the shipyard to do our job, and it was literally closed. Like nobody knew this was happening.
That's so skeevy. Like
it's crazy.
That's wild. And there's so many ships I've been there since I was a kid. Like
so, all those are mothballed ships. So that's in it's a special category of like fleet reserve. The other issue is they don't know what to do with them other than sink them, and nobody really pays for them.
What?
Nobody wants to buy them, but it's still good steel and whatever else.
That's so crazy.
But you have ships in there from like World War II still sitting
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And I would, because it's on the way to IKEA. So anytime I'd go to, because it's near South Philly, anytime I'd go down there, I'd see one ship specifically, and it always looked like the Titanic. And I was like, that's the closest thing I'll ever see to a Titanic.
That actually is that's the Queen. It's Queen something the first. It's one of the ships of the line. It was an old cruise liner from the day.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
That's where it retired to. And it's just sitting there.
It's just sitting there. It's like a staple now, though.
There used to be 2 aircraft carriers there too that were decommissioned. I think Kitty Hawk was one of them, and I forget the other one. And they sat there forever and ever and ever. And then they finally moved them. I think they both went over to Bremerton. They had to tug them across. So they took them down around South America, brought them back up, and then there's a huge ghost fleet in Puget Sound, Washington State.
That's crazy.
Where like you round this corner of this mountain. If you've never been to Washington State, it's absolutely probably one of the prettiest states we have. But Puget Sound is gorgeous, and they have this just massive fleet of ships that are all stacked together, tied up, and there's probably a couple hundred. You can go on Google Earth and look at them. They're just sitting there. And in the James River, so you go up North James River, like you're in between Virginia and Maryland. There's another ghost fleet up there also. No, nowhere near as big as the one in Puget Sound, but it's pretty impressive.
That's crazy.
Yep, just sitting there.
I'm learning so much.
And aviation, there's a graveyard in Arizona that's unreal. Like
What?
tens of thousands of airplanes.
Like they
sit
just
there.
leave them there?
They do, because
Like
there's it's zero humidity, so there's no corrosion. So let's say the military decommissions a certain type of aircraft, like they no longer need it, but they have a couple hundred of them. No other country wants to buy them, but there may be the slimmest chance that they could possibly want to use them again someday. They fly them into this location, they break them apart, take the engines out, do all the work that they do, and then they stack them in a row, they're all accounted for. They cover up all the intakes and everything like that, and then they just sit. The only thing that beats down is the sun, but it's not enough to do any real damage. And if they ever had to get them back, they could do certain ones. Now other ones are like, they're just beyond ever getting redone again. They sit there. And part of that is also, some of those aircraft were part of our nuclear deterrence force, like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when we were basically in the Cold War with Russia. And every year they have to do this flyover. They fly overhead. They have to count all the planes that are supposed to be there, at least certain type. And they always bring up a counterpart from Russia. And then that same year, an American counterpart will go into Russia and do the same thing over where they put their graveyard planes.
Oh my
There's this
gosh.
agreement we have to look down and make sure that those bombers or whatever's are there. Yep.
That's crazy.
It's not classified, that's a real thing, it's been declassified. So
That's crazy. Wow.
it's wild stuff.
Well, do you
Big-
have anything else you want to say?
Big world, small world. No, I appreciate you doing this. It's pretty cool. And glad I could help out and love to get this airport growing more and more and more.
Yeah.